India has a very large number of people. It has more people than any other country in the world, even more than China. If you meet 6 people from different countries, one of them will probably be from India. Many countries have older people. For example, in China, the average age is 39. But in India, the average age is only 28. Many Indians are very young. Almost half of all people in India are less than 25 years old. This is very different from countries like Japan or Italy, where many people are older. In those countries, fewer young people must work to support many old people. India does not have this problem now. It has millions of young people who can work and help the country grow. This large number of young people is special. No other big economy has so many young workers. India is a country with big differences. On one side, many people work in farming. About 4 out of every 10 working Indians work on farms. Often, they work in poor conditions. This makes India look like an agricultural country. But on the other side, India does very modern things. It builds rockets and sends them to space, even to Mars. India is also a leader in technology. Many smart people from India lead big international companies. India also has many computer programmers who work for companies all around the world. Not very long ago, about 80 years, India was a colony ruled by Britain. Now, India's economy is growing fast. It has grown bigger than Britain's economy in some ways. India is becoming an important country in the world. Some people think it could become a top leader like the United States or China, but it is not there yet. Something is holding India back. This story will look at India's journey. How did a country change from a colony to a strong nation? How did it build its economy and become good at technology? We will explore its successes, but we will also look at the problems that India still faces. Why does a country with so much progress still have big challenges? Why hasn't India become a world leader yet, and what difficulties does it need to solve for the future? 2. Old India and first traders. Long ago, people in Europe did not know much about India. Old maps from around the year 1300 showed strange ideas about it. Europeans thought India was a magic land. They heard stories about rivers full of gold. They believed giant people lived there because the sun was very strong. Some maps even showed dragons. These were just stories and ideas Europeans heard from far away. In 1498, a man from Portugal named Vasco da Gama sailed to India. He was one of the first Europeans to reach India by sea. He wanted to see if the stories were true. He did not find any dragons or giants, but he found that India was very rich. There was gold and beautiful pearls. There were special things like pepper and cinnamon to make food taste good. These were called spices. People in India also made colorful cloth. Vasco da Gama saw that India was a real place with real wealth. Why was India so rich? It was in a very good place for trade. India is in the middle of Asia. Trade ships could easily reach its long coast from the ocean. Also, important land trade paths like the Silk Road passed near India. So for a very long time, traders from many countries came to India. It was like a big market for Asia. People came to buy and sell things. Indians were used to seeing people from other countries. When European ships started to arrive more often, Indian people welcomed them. They traded happily. Indians sold their spices and nice cloth. They bought things from Europe like guns, glass, and mirrors. The Europeans really wanted the spices. Spices made food taste new and exciting back in Europe. People paid a lot of money for them. A European trader could make a lot of extra money from just one trip selling Indian spices. Soon, many Europeans wanted this money. People from Holland, the Dutch, France, and Britain all sailed to India. They all wanted to trade and become rich. The British wanted a big part of this trade. In the year 1600, a group of rich English business people had an idea. There were 218 of them. They went to Queen Elizabeth I of England. They asked her for a special favor. They wanted to be the only English group allowed to trade in Asia. They also asked for weapons to help them. In return, they promised to give the Queen some of the money they made. They also said they would help England become more important in other parts of the world. The Queen said yes. This group became the British East India Company. It started small, but it wanted to make a lot of money from trade with India. This company grew very large and important later. 3. British rule starts. India was very rich, but it was not one single country back then. It was like a colorful picture made of many small pieces. These pieces were different areas, like small kingdoms, ruled by local princes or leaders. These rulers often had their own plans and interests. They did not always agree with each other. Sometimes they fought wars against their neighbors. Also, people in different parts of India spoke many different languages. There were hundreds of languages and thousands of ways of speaking them. This made it hard for India to be united and strong against outsiders. The British East India Company saw that India was divided. The company was clever and used this situation. They helped some local rulers fight against other rulers. They gave money and support to the princes who would give the company good conditions for trade. This helped the British push out other European traders like the Dutch and the French. But how could a company from small Britain control such a huge country like India? India was much bigger than Britain, and it had many more people. Britain did not have a very large army compared to other big countries at that time. Sending many British soldiers to India was difficult and costly. So the East India Company had an idea. They started to hire local Indian men to become soldiers in the company's army. These Indian soldiers were called sepoys. For many poor young Indian men, becoming a sepoy was a good job. It gave them money and a way to have a better life. Soon, the company had a large army made mostly of sepoys. Using its army, money, and clever plans, the East India Company slowly took control of more and more land in India. Sometimes they fought wars. Other times, they made agreements with local rulers who then had to follow British orders. This process took many years. Finally, in the year 1858, the British government took direct control over India from the East India Company. This period of direct British rule is called the British Raj. Britain wanted India mainly for economic reasons. They wanted India's raw materials, especially cotton for British factories. Britain stopped India from trading freely with other countries. India had to sell its cotton and other materials cheaply to Britain. Then, British factories made goods like cloth and sold them back to India. Indians were forced to buy these British goods. Britain made India into a market for its products and a place to get resources. They were not ruling India mainly to help Indian people, but to make Britain richer. 4. Fighting for freedom. Life in India under British rule was hard. Many Indians felt unhappy and wanted change. In 1857, a big problem started with the army's new rifles. Soldiers had to bite open paper packets to load the guns. A story spread that the paper was covered in fat from cows or pigs. This was a big problem for Indian soldiers called sepoys. Most sepoys were Hindu or Muslim. Cows are holy for Hindus and pigs are unclean for Muslims. This instruction felt disrespectful to their religions. The sepoys were already unhappy. British officers did not treat them well, and British control hurt India's economy, making many families poor. So the sepoys started a revolt. This was the start of India's first war of independence. The British stopped the revolt, but they learned something. They understood that ruling India only with force was difficult. They needed a different way. Britain promised Indians more equal rights and allowed them to have a small political group. But these changes were small. Then came World War I. India was part of the British Empire, so Britain sent over 1 million Indian soldiers to fight in Europe. Many Indians hoped that helping Britain in the war would bring more freedom, maybe even independence to India. But after the war, India got nothing. Instead, British control became stronger. Indians felt disappointed and asked, "What did we fight for?" Protests started again. A new important leader appeared, Mahatma Gandhi. He was quiet but strong. Gandhi studied law in England. Later, he worked in South Africa. There he saw that Indians were treated badly because of their skin color. He was not allowed in some hotels and was treated unfairly on trains. Gandhi decided to fight for rights, but not with violence. He believed in nonviolent resistance. This meant refusing to follow unfair rules, but without fighting or anger. He organized protests in South Africa and became well known. When Gandhi returned to India in 1915, people already knew him. He used his nonviolent ideas in India. One famous example is the Salt March in 1930. Britain controlled salt production and put a high tax on it. Indians, even those living near the sea, could not make their own salt. They had to buy expensive salt from the British. Gandhi thought this was unfair. He walked 400 kilometers to the sea with about 80 followers to make salt from seawater. Many more people joined the march. Soon, there were over 100,000 people. The British arrested Gandhi. But the protests did not stop. Millions of Indians started making salt illegally and refused to buy British goods or pay taxes. The protests continued until 1931. Finally, Britain removed the salt tax. It was easier than fighting the protests. Gandhi was even invited to London to talk about India's future. He went in his simple clothes to show support for India's poor people, but Britain was still not ready to give India independence. This situation continued until World War II. 5. A new country is born. After the Second World War, Britain was weak and tired. The war cost a lot of money and lives. Britain did not have the strength or money to control India anymore. India became too expensive to keep as a colony. People in India were also demanding freedom more and more. So, Britain started talks about India's independence in 1945. but these talks were very difficult. India was not one united country at that time. The main problem was between the two largest religious groups, Hindus and Muslims. Most people were Hindu, but there were also many Muslims. The Muslim leaders worried about the future. They were afraid that in a free India ruled mostly by Hindus, Muslims would not be treated fairly. They wanted their own separate country. These arguments continued for 2 years. Britain wanted to leave India quickly. In June 1947, the British government made a decision. They announced that India would be independent in just 10 weeks, but they also decided to divide the country into 2 parts. One part would be India, mostly for Hindus. The other part would be Pakistan, mostly for Muslims. A British lawyer named Cyril Radcliffe drew the new border between India and Pakistan. This border was called the Radcliffe Line. He drew the line very quickly in only a few weeks. He did not know India well. The line went through villages, fields, and even houses. It separated millions of people from their homes and families based on their religion. When the partition happened in August 1947, it caused terrible chaos. Millions of people had to move. Hindus and Sikhs in the new Pakistan moved to India. Muslims in India moved to Pakistan. This was one of the largest movements of people in history. Sadly, there was also terrible violence. Many people were attacked and killed as they tried to cross the border. Homes were burned and families were broken apart. It was a very sad and difficult time. The British soldiers left India completely in February 1948. They left the 2 new countries to face their problems alone. India and Pakistan immediately started arguing about the land, especially an area called Kashmir. They believed the border was unfair. These arguments and fights between India and Pakistan have continued for many years, even until today. So India finally became independent, but it started its new life as a divided country. It faced huge challenges. Millions of people were homeless refugees. There was sadness and anger after the violence of partition. Building a new, strong, and united country would be very hard work. Freedom was won, but the problems were just beginning. 6. Building the economy. When India became free in 1947, it was a very poor country. Not many people lived long lives. The average Indian only lived to be about 34 years old. There were many diseases and not always enough food. Most people worked on farms, often using simple tools, not machines like tractors. India had many people, but the economy was weak. The new leaders needed a plan to make India stronger and feed everyone. The first prime minister liked ideas similar to socialist countries. The government decided to control the big, important industries like steel and electricity. They made 5-year plans to guide the economy. This was a bit like the Soviet Union's planning. But small private businesses were still allowed to operate. India had big problems to solve. First, farming needed help. Farms needed water all year, not just when it rained. So India built large dams. These dams held water for farms. They also made electricity for new factories. One dam built then is still the longest dam in the world today. Second, people's health was very important. Too many babies died young and diseases were common. In 1947, India started a Ministry of Health. This helped people get vaccines and go to hospitals. Third, India needed basic industries. Steel was very important for building things. India got help from the Soviet Union, Britain, and West Germany to build big steel factories. To help its own companies grow, India made rules against goods from other countries. It put high taxes, called tariffs, on things people wanted to import. This made foreign goods very expensive. By 1985, India's tariffs were the highest in the world. The government also started a system called the License Raj. Businesses needed to get permission or a license from the government for almost everything. If you wanted to start a company, make a new product, or even make more of your product, you needed a license. This system was very slow and made it hard for businesses, especially small ones. These plans had problems. The License Raj stopped businesses from growing quickly. The government printed too much money, which made prices go up fast. This is called inflation. Also, the number of people in India grew very quickly. By the mid-1960s, there were more than 500 million people. Farms could not grow food fast enough. Many people needed help to get food. The government had to borrow money from other countries. India's debt grew bigger every year, faster than the economy grew. By 1991, India was in a big crisis. The government had almost no money left to buy important things like oil and food from other countries. They only had enough money for about 2 weeks. India asked the International Monetary Fund, IMF, for help. The IMF agreed to lend money, but India had to change its economy. It had to lower the tariffs and remove many licenses. It had to open the country so foreign businesses could come in. India agreed. It started to change from its socialist-like path and connect more with the world economy. 7. India's young people. Have you noticed that the leaders of some very big American technology companies, like Google and Microsoft, came from India? How did this happen in a country that was once quite poor? After India became independent, its leaders knew the country needed its own skilled workers. They needed engineers and scientists to build the new India. So very early, around the 1950s, the government started special new universities. These were called the Indian Institutes of Technology, or IITs. Other countries like America and the Soviet Union helped India build these top schools. Very importantly, students at the IITs learned science and technology in English. Year after year, many smart young Indians graduated from these schools. They had good technical skills and could speak English well. This became very important later. Around the 1980s and 90s, computers became popular around the world. New companies like Apple and Microsoft grew quickly in America. These companies needed many computer programmers and engineers. India had exactly what they needed, many well-trained people who spoke English. The Indian government saw this as a big chance. Building big factories to compete with Japan or Germany was hard, but information technology, or IT, was a new area. India decided to focus on it. The government created special areas called technology parks. New IT companies in these parks got help, like lower taxes. It was easier for them to start and grow. Soon, companies in America and Europe realized they could hire Indian workers for IT jobs. Indian programmers were skilled, spoke English, and cost less money than programmers in richer countries. This started a big business called outsourcing. Many international companies began sending computer work to India. This created many jobs and helped India's economy grow. This success showed India could use its large population to develop. The government started a program called Make in India. This program helps Indians start their own companies. It offers help like easier loans and tax breaks for new businesses, called startups. Today, India has a huge number of startups, more than most countries in the world. These new companies work in many areas. For example, India's medicine companies are very strong. During the COVID-19 pandemic, an Indian startup made a vaccine that helped millions of people in India and other countries. India's biggest advantage might be its people. India has the largest population in the world, and it is very young. The average age in India is only about 28 years. Almost half of all Indians are under 25 years old. This is different from many rich countries, and even China, where the population is getting older. A young population means India will have many workers for years to come. It also means a very big market of people who can buy goods and services. Many young Indians also speak English, which helps India connect with the rest of the world. This large, young, and often English-speaking population gives India great potential for the future. 8. Looking to the future. India is growing fast, but it still has big problems. These problems make it difficult for India to become a top world leader. One problem is that it's hard for poor people to become rich. This is sometimes called low social mobility. Part of this is because of old ideas like karma. Some people believe their life is hard because of a past life, and maybe the next life will be better. Also, an old system called the caste system still makes life hard for people from lower groups, even though it is not official now. They may find it difficult to get good education or jobs. Another big problem is money. India has many very poor people. Millions live with very little money, less than $2 or $3 a day. At the same time, India has hundreds of billionaires who are very rich. You can see this difference in big cities like Mumbai. Tall, modern buildings stand next to large areas where poor people live in small homes, called slums. There are also big differences between areas in India. Some parts of the country, like the areas near the west coast, are richer. These places have big ports and businesses, but other parts, like the north and northeast, are much poorer. People there often work in farming and have less education. India also has serious problems with the environment. The air in big cities like New Delhi is often very dirty and dangerous to breathe. This smog comes from cars, factories, and burning coal for electricity. India uses a lot of coal because it needs energy for its growing industry, and coal is cheap there. Water is also very polluted, especially the famous Ganges River. Waste from cities and factories goes into the river. Some religious practices also add to the pollution. This dirty water makes many people sick, especially children. India has been careful about its economy. It tries to protect its own companies from foreign companies. This is different from China, which opened up more to foreign companies earlier to help it grow faster. India's economy is growing steadily, often more than 6% each year. It might soon become the world's third biggest economy. Because wages in China are getting higher, many international companies are now looking at India. They see India as a new place to build factories and make products. It could become the new world factory. India has a great chance to grow more and become more important in the world. It has many young people and a growing economy. But to really succeed, India needs to solve its big problems, like poverty, inequality, and pollution. Given its huge potential and complex problems, what do you think is the single biggest step India needs to take to truly become a global superpower?
Hey there! Just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really, really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world. Thank you.